Hey guys, it's Zach here again, here to do a match review between Māori All Blacks and Ireland. The Māori All Blacks take this one 32 points to 17. It was an interesting game. I thought it was contrasting halves in that the Māori All Blacks got away, they dominated possession and territory, were able to put points on in the first half and extend their lead 32 points to 10 it was at half time. In the second half, the Irish were able to come back into the match, were able to dominate somewhat in the forwards, were able to build their way back into the possession stats and the territory stats, had a number of attacking opportunities right on the Māori line, unfortunately weren't able to convert. They did score the only try of the second half though, so they'll be pleased with that, but it was a bridge too far. I think the Māori got out to too much of a lead and the Irish unfortunately weren't able to claw their way back into the game. But if we rewind all the way back to the beginning of the game, I do want to touch on a really classy moment here by the Irish team and by Bundyaki presenting a match day jersey to the Māori All Blacks. For those that weren't aware, that was a tribute to a Māori All Blacks player who unfortunately lost his life last year, Sean Wainui, who was a really well-respected player, well-respected member of the Māori community, and that was just a really touching gesture to acknowledge him. They did make it, the Māori All Blacks did make it a point of pride this week to try and, play in a manner that respected his legacy, what he brought to the jersey, and the outcomes and high standards that he brought to the team. So it was very clear early on. You saw Māori All Blacks crying during the national anthem, a lot of passion in the haka. It was really clear that they were playing with a point of pride to try and respect Sean Wainui's memory as well. So that was, I think, an indication that the Māori All Blacks were playing for something more than themselves and would come out firing in the first half, which is exactly what we saw. So, very early on, I thought the Irish started to dominate set piece and line out within that first 10 metres. It was clear they had the better set piece. They were also cycling through the phases quite well. So when they were able to keep ball in hand, it looked like a typical Andy Farrell coached team, that they looked dangerous and really, really slick, and I thought extremely well drilled. So the structures in place, it meant quick ball recycling from the breakdown and quick, fast attack with everyone in their right positions to be able to attack as a full team and unit. The issue is, unfortunately, there were a number of errors which meant they couldn't maintain that continuity throughout the first half, and that was a big reason why the Māori started to dominate possession and territory stats in that first half. Through errors from the Irish, unfortunately, through ill discipline as well, giving away a number of penalties, it all started to compound, as well as the confidence that the Māori All Blacks were showing. It all started to compound somewhat into a possession and territory advantage for the Māori All Blacks. Cian Healy was brought on early, a head assessment for Jeremy Luffman. They were replaced out later in that first half, around the midpoint of the first half. And I also thought, part of the reason for the lopsided possession and territory stats was some of the inexperience that we saw from 9, 10 and 15, all on debut, obviously, for Ireland in this match. Andy Farrell has made no secrets that this part of the outcome of this tour is to build depth in the squad and start exposing these players to top-level, high-pressure rugby. So certainly these players will be better for that hit-out. I think they did show their inexperience and inability, I guess due to inexperience, to wrestle the game back and better game manage. And it's quite a bold call, I guess, putting 3 inexperienced players on debut in that key spine of a team. But the outcome Andy Farrell is looking for, I suppose, ultimately is to build experience and depth in his squad. So ultimately these players will be better for that experience. A lot of the kicking from Kieran Frawley unfortunately led to counter-attacks by the All Blacks, and the Māori All Blacks I should say. And the back 3 for the Māori All Blacks was specifically selected in order to counter-attack from high ball from the opposition. Zahn Sullivan, who was my man of the match in this game, I thought he was outstanding, was able to score a try and always threatening, game managed really well. He put in a fantastic 50-22 kick, which ultimately resulted in his own try and putting Ireland continued under pressure. He's almost 2 meters in height. Sean Stevenson is almost 1.9 meters in height. Garden Bishop as well. He is a full-time fullback. So this team was designed to neutralise the effect of the high ball, and they did exactly that and were able to counter-attack on the back of somewhat aimless kicking from the inexperienced Irish players. What that led to, obviously, was a number of breaks. Sean Stevenson seemed to continually make breaks on the right wing side, and an ability to neutralise the high ball kicking as well. The second try was scored by Bundy Arki, and that was just reward for, continuity of play. So the Irish showed that when they do keep ball in hand, when they limit the errors and ill discipline, and when they show that kind of attacking structure that Andy Farrell and this Irish team are known for, they're able to very easily make insertions through the defensive line. And I thought they were almost, doing so at will at points in that first half. So that'll be a real area of concern and something they'll be looking to work on, limit the errors, limit the ill discipline, and ensure they can maintain their own style of rugby and continuity by keeping the ball in their own possession. I think in that 15 minutes before halftime, what we started to notice was the Māori All Blacks, and in particular in the forwards, starting to get ascension over the Irish forward pack. And that was mainly a weight of possession outcome. So what I noticed is that at that stage, around the 30-minute mark, the Māori had 65% possession and had made 1/6 of the tackles that Ireland had made. So that starts to compound itself and starts to play itself out in other effort areas. The Māori started to get ascendancy at the scrum. Were able to get a scrum penalty at one stage. They started turning a number of lineouts as well. They started dominating the physical contact areas as well as the breakdown in that final 15 minutes. And just before halftime, they were rewarded for that with a try by Cullen Grace to run out to a 32 points to 10 lead at halftime. And again, this was purely built on the weight of possession that the Māori had. I think as well due to the errors and ill discipline that Ireland showed in that first half, and also some of the inexperience to game manage these types of games for those players on debut for Ireland. And to the second half, Ireland showed a lot more of what they can actually do with the ball in hand. When they were able to continue to maintain possession, they were able to continually attack the Māori defensive line. I think the Māori did extremely well there to neutralize some of that attack, or at least to defend directly on the goal line. They were able to keep out a number of tries that looked almost like certain tries, but there were 2 or 3 try-saved opportunities that the Māori did really well in, and it just limited the ability for Ireland to get any momentum in that second half. They did have the better of the second half, though. They scored the only try there, so congratulations there. Something for them to build on as well going forward into the remaining games. So the Māori All Blacks, too good in this one. They take this game 32 points to 17. I think when we look at the test, though, I don't think there's a huge amount that we can take from this game. I think ultimately they will be independent games, albeit the injury to Cian Healy towards the end of the game may be quite telling in terms of the prop rotation for Ireland, where they have a definite advantage over the All Blacks. But outside of that, this is a real opportunity for young players on debut to get some exposure, top-level rugby, touring and playing teams away. That's going to be a valuable experience for the future, and I think a lot of these players will be better for that experience overall. Okay, guys, a couple of talking points that and takeaways from this match that I want to touch on. Firstly, this result has no real bearing on the outcome of the test. I don't think we can deduce anything other than confirming the fact that it is tough to win in New Zealand. The second point I want to touch on is that Andy Farrell had a highly experienced bench, which he chose not to bring in around the halfway mark or sort of shortly after. He really wanted to give his players an opportunity to develop and continue to work through and experience what it's like to be on tour and play in a difficult environment under high pressure. So he did mention that this would be the approach that he would take during this tour, but he was able to resist the urge to do so. Cian Healy was injured towards the end of the game, and it looked like quite a significant injury. So I don't expect that we will see him as part of the test series, which does indicate some challenges for Ireland to manage the prop rotation. And that's where we'll leave it for this one. Māori take the first game of the 5-match series. I'd love to know what you guys thought about the game overall, where you thought the both teams did well or could have done better overall, and how this sets things up for the next match between these two teams in a couple of weeks. That's it from me for now. I'll be back with more videos in the future. Enjoy the rugby, guys.